I want to do a quick walkthrough video on how to fix these JSFiddle bugs that popped up this week in ChiliPeppr. And so I'm going to go jump into the Gerbil workspace as an example. And for the most part, everything's working in here, but I do know that, for instance, when you click touch plate, you get an error. So what you can see in this error is I'm going to click on it, and it takes you to this Jarrett KVA. It doesn't know what the domain name is off that error, so you actually have to just go to JSFiddle.net manually, but then you see the /Jarrett/KVA URL, and you can see it's actually running in here. JSFiddle definitely changed something because you should see the results in here. Regardless, we're just going to quickly go import this into Cloud9 and make a new GitHub repo. So just to get an idea of where the GitHub repo is for Gerbil, you can go click on this and say fork workspace in GitHub, and it will pull up the ChiliPeppr-Gerbil repo. And then there's some elements in here already, so you can kind of mimic those. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you in your own GitHub account how to start a new widget, because we want to get this HTML, this JavaScript, and this CSS into a GitHub version of a widget. Okay, so I'm just going to go to GitHub in this screen. Actually, I probably, it doesn't really matter. And I'm going to sign in. And so I'm going to sign in as an account that doesn't have any relationship to ChiliPeppr, so that I'm mimicking more how you at home would be doing something. And notice I'm just sort of signed in as John Lauer. And if I go to my profile and I go to repository, what I'm going to do is actually create a new repository. And since I'm trying to pull in this widget touch plate and I'm trying to mimic some of these naming styles, I'm going to create a new repository called Widget Gerbil Touch Plate. And this is the touch plate for Gerbil. Make it public and create the repo. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to import code. Now, where am I going to import this code from? Well, I'm going to pull it in from the ChiliPeppr widget template. And so the way to sort of think about this is if you go over to ChiliPeppr to that repo and you go to the list of repositories and you type template, it is right there. So this is the one we're going to borrow from. This template is really just the most basic layout for any ChiliPeppr widget. So copy that, and this is what I'm going to clone into this. So I'm going to import it. And while that's doing it, I'm going to use Cloud9 to as my IDE. Now I know a lot of you might use like a local IDE. I really love Cloud9 because you not only get an editing environment in the web, you get a Docker container that's with it. And I'm going to now create a new workspace. And what's cool about this is I'm gonna mimic this one. The repo's created now. So I'm going to mimic this name over in Cloud9. I don't need a description. I'll just say public. But you clone your actual GitHub repository into it, and that makes it so you can it pulls all the code down, but then you can also push right back up to GitHub really easily. So it takes a little bit to create it. Now I'm logged into Cloud9 as a generic user. It's the free version. Anybody can do it for free. It creates this Docker container. It pulls down the GitHub content, and you can edit it right here. And it should push it back to here as well. And then the real kicker will be how do I get it? How do I actually get it loading in here? For that, you do have to be you have to be able to edit this workspace. So you could go look at the edit boot JavaScript, for instance, and you can see that where it's loading from is ChiliPeppr-Gerbil workspace Gerbil. You know, that's basically where we were earlier. I'll go back to it. Yeah, is is this repository. And actually wondering why this looks empty. Oh, yeah, that's the wrong one. Here, it's easier to do it from here. You just go to this billboard menu and you say fork workspace in GitHub, and I'll close that tab because it was confusing me as well. So this is really the JavaScript code that loads all of these. So the best thing to do is actually do a pull request to this repository. There's a few owners of this today. Myself, Ray Colo. I invited Justin80 into it just to get a few more people editing it. Okay, this is now pulled up, and what we're going to do is we're going to open up the widget.js. And just to get this a little cleaner, I'll put it right next to it. I'm going to pull this JavaScript. And you can effectively just replace this whole thing. Okay, and then I'm going to save that, and then I'll go to the HTML, and I'll steal this HTML, and go back over here. Now for this HTML, you want to keep the header and you want to keep the body, but the part you want to get rid of is this div in the middle of the body. So I'm going to hit delete. I have an empty body now, and then I'm going to paste in the HTML out of JSFiddle, and then I'm going to do my CSS, steal this CSS, go back here, paste in the CSS, hit save, and then what you can do is you can preview your HTML right here. And it looks like it's running. Now, one of the things I like to do is I like to add a little bit of padding in this CP require test. This is what actually executes when you run here. And just to see if that did anything, no, that doesn't look like it does. So I'm gonna now open up my JavaScript, and I see that I'm actually having a little bit of errors here. So let's go fix those errors. It looks to me like it's trying to load 3js.org over HTTPS. So let's go back in here and just see what's going on. Yeah, so one of the things you want to do, this is the old code out of JSFiddle, is I like to just do that so that it loads on its own. Seeing that already seems to be working because I'm getting my 20 pixel padding, but then I'm getting this edit in JSFiddle. Now I'm noticing that it says ZMBL9 down here. That is, we can look for it, ZMBL9. Yeah, it's right here in the fork setup. So what we want to do is actually mimic the way the template was set up. And so, remember I forked the template, and I want to actually see how this fork setup is done. I probably could just copy it, but I know it's this line of code. So let's just steal the fork setup method from the template. Fork setup. That's that whole method. And I'll just paste that in. Hit save. Run back over here. And it looks like we're loading without any errors. Let's try that one more time. Yeah, looks good. No errors. And this generally seems to be correct. Okay. So now that that's good, you want to run runme.js to recreate this auto-generated widget.html. This effectively just pulls together the JavaScript, HTML, and the CSS into one monolithic file, puts that up on GitHub, and then that's actually what ChiliPeppr calls to pull down or to load the widget. But the way to generate that easily, rather than cutting and pasting all of it, is to run runme.js. Runme.js does a whole bunch of nice stuff for you. It once your code is running, you can click this and say open in preview. And then this little warning thing, you just skip it and say open the app. But it generates your documents for you, and it generates your new README, and it generates your auto-generated widget, and it pushes your updates to GitHub. So it's a super awesome convenience function. But you'll notice here username for GitHub. So I logged in earlier as John Lauer. password, and then that should push it up to my repo. So where's my repo? Yeah, John Lauer widget. So we'll go back here, and you'll see that 33 seconds ago is our update. So that's a good sign. Now, I always like to put a screenshot in here. And so the way to do the screenshot is kind of fun. You split this into 2 columns just to get it a little skinnier looking, meaning it's more like what it would look like in ChiliPeppr. It's skinnier. And I just do the Windows screenshot, which is Shift Window key S. And then back in this upload screenshot, you can just hit paste, Control V. For some reason, it's not resizing as well on my new laptop. This little window, it doesn't matter though, you can upload it anyway. You'll see it's uploaded there. And then you actually have to hit refresh on this to regenerate the README, regenerate the auto-generated widget, push updates to GitHub. And you'll notice it's re-asking for my password again. Oops. I must have typed it in wrong. Okay. And then I can go back and it should be there. The screenshot.png should be updated. Ooh, I must have beat it to the punch. Is it really still? Let's see, did it really update? And let's go look at it. Yeah, that's updated. I just don't know why I didn't push it, but you know, sometimes GitHub's a little slow. Let's see. Maybe it didn't. No, it's not authenticating. A little wonky. See if that does it. Okay, maybe that did it. So let's go back here and see if this, there it is, a minute ago. So this is correct now. Sometimes it doesn't show up here though because it takes a little bit for GitHub to refresh its cache. But that a minute ago is a really good sign. Okay, now that we have that created, we are pretty much good to go. But what we would want to do is do a pull request. Well, if anything, I guess what you could do is you could just do a, just open up an issue here and just, on this one, what do I do, an issue? Projects. I want to submit an issue. Issues. No. Oh, sorry. Could do it as a new pull request. Let's do this. Why does that one have an issue but the other one doesn't? It's supposed to be an issues tab. Right here. Well, you could also post on the Google Plus page. So just do a post on the Google Plus page and just say, you know, something like, hey, I've now created the new like the new touchplate widget, and then I can get it in, or somebody else who owns it does. So that's about it. That is how you go ahead and create a GitHub version of what prior was a JSFiddle version of a widget. Hey, I found another bug, so I figure I'll tune back in here and show you. You're supposed to have more menu items than this. This is the old layout for a pub sub menu. But if you recall, I swapped in that new fork setup code, which should be showing the GitHub version of fork setup. But what happens is if you only have the URL and the fiddle URL, you end up with the old style menu. And so again, we've got to kind of go back to this idea of what the template looked like. And so I got to go re-find the template. So what I do is I just search, I do GitHub ChiliPeppr template, and it's always the first result. So you go to the widget template, And then I'm just going to go look at this JavaScript code, and you will see you're supposed to have an ID, a name, a description, a URL, a fiddle URL, a GitHub, and a test URL. So I'm going to copy those lines of code because I know over here I only have a URL and a fiddle URL. And you're supposed to just do this like autofill, because then the runme.js autofills it for you. And so there's also, you can check it in here. These are a little off too, these auto-generated statements, and I'll kind of show you why. But what I can do this way is, and that looks good. Okay, so we are supposed to, yeah, look, we've got all 5 of these now, so that's correct. But I'm still getting bad URLs for that. Now that's not the end of the world, but it just means that when you go to click on these, you'll go to the wrong URL. So in that respect, I do consider that the end of the world. What I know is that in runme.js, it tries to look for your, it tries to look through the command line. It runs this command. So let's just go ahead and run it, and I'll show you what it does. Typically that gives you the URL, but when runme.js was written, the version of Git was actually returning like the .git format. And so it kind of looks at it in a different way. Now this code could get updated, but frankly, I'm just kind of cheating the system here and just saying that the return.url equals this, and the return.raw URL equals, it's something similar to this, but what I'll do is I'll just copy it, paste it in, but this part is like that. And then we're just kind of forcing it. And then you got to go over here, got to restart your runme.js so it slurps in your new code. And now when we run this, we should actually get the correct values. And we do. It's probably going to ask me for my authentication. That's getting old pretty fast. There's a way to do a command line, like a git cache on the command line for you Git experts out there. Let's wipe this out and just make sure we got no errors again when we hit reload. And looks good, no errors.